PNB Luxura Metal Credit Card. PNB, मेरा अपना बैंक.
टर 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 सिस्टर बीना का मैसेज आया है अर्जेंट. लिखा है मेरे बच्चे के ट्रीटमेंट के लिए 1 लाख रुपए चाहिए डॉक्टर, तुरंत भेज दीजिए प्लीज.
सिस्टर बीना, मैं पहले सिस्टर बीना को फोन करके पूछूंगी, फिर भेजूंगी, क्योंकि मैं मूर्ख नहीं हूँ.
वेल डन डॉक्टर. यूपीआई कहता है अगर पहचान के व्यक्ति से भी ऐसे मैसेज आए तो हो सकता है कि उनके मैसेजिंग ऐप हैक्ड हो. तो पहले नॉर्मल कॉल करके चेक करो और कहो मैं मूर्ख नहीं हूँ. जाइए आप भी किसी का टेस्ट लीजिए.
On the verge of breaking below the 22,800 mark from the start of the month of March, it's been a decline of nearly 10% now for the benchmark indices. And then the question is, if the conflict comes to an end, say over the weekend, do you think the Indian equities bounce back ferociously? Or, the bounce back will be tepid because at the end of the day, there are macro implications. Crude prices don't go back to where they were at the start of the conflict at $60, $65 per barrel. Earnings are going to get cut through the course of this year. Whenever the war comes to an end, what's the extent of the recovery we should expect?
If the war comes to an end over the weekend, I think you should expect a very sharp recovery because I think people are still in the mode where they are looking for opportunities. And while they have been somewhat kind of mauled by the recent fall, I think the behavior that has been inculcated in the retail market of buying the dips is still very much there. The challenge is also the effect on the economy will not be that deleterious because you would have had only a few weeks of a problem, and therefore the likelihood of it being sorted out is a little better. No doubt the oil and gas availability and prices will be higher, and therefore there will be some amount of slowdown, but I think the first reaction will be of relief and a significant upside. That said, I personally don't think it's going to go away very soon. You're looking at a country which has kind of been hammered over every few months and would have therefore prepared itself to act at least in a guerrilla mode, not necessarily taking on the might directly. But they have the world by the jugular. And therefore, so long as they are able to create a problem for everybody else, the pressure to kind of resolve is going to be difficult for the US to take or Israel to handle, while at the same time, they can't just back off. So I think it is not an easy problem to solve. And the longer it delays, the longer the problem becomes, because not only is the economy impacted negatively, but also the behavior of the so many years of buying every dip would get punitively, punished every time. And that would certainly create a kind of a problem for the domestic investors.
The whole outsourcing narrative also gets stronger, right? Or even the GCC narrative. With a 10% depreciation seen in the rupee in FY26, if earlier you could say fund 100 seats, you can now fund 110 seats for the same amount of dollars because the rupee has gotten so much more cheaper. So, if you look at names like a Sagility, for instance, it's an outsourcing company in the US healthcare space, 6.5% higher. Generally, is that a space you would look at more attractively, any of the BPO themes or a company like a Sagility, First Source?
So broadly, I think you would be looking at things which are going to benefit from a weaker dollar, and clearly anything which exports is great. Pharma and healthcare, far more difficult to replace, therefore even better. IT too may actually do a little better over the next few quarters because, the rupee has fallen so sharply, and to the extent that they would have fewer people onshore over a period of time. Those who have got more offshore capabilities would certainly find at least a marginal increase in their improvement in the margins. But all those are not enough, in my view, to move the needle from an economic point of view. I think the overall economy continues to struggle if this thing lasts for a long period of time. But from a sectoral point of view, certainly the focus from domestic has to shift to those which are looking at exports.
Focus has to shift from exports to domestic or domestic to export, Anand?
From domestic to exports. By and large, we were looking at domestics earlier, right? I mean, most of the growth is supposed to be domestic. I think that has to clearly move to the export side.
Manufacturing exports, Anand, or
So, pharma, etc. is easier. IT is also easier. You're not so much dependent on inputs from other places. Manufactured ones, the problem is that we also import a whole lot of stuff. And given where the supply chains are being hit, you don't know which ones will be affected. I mean, take, for example, electronic exports. Now you are looking at capacity constraints from simple